Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever felt scared, struggled, or been at wit's end with your life circumstances and how to make it through the challenges, then do we have the bringing show for you. Today I'll be talking with Mary O'Malley, author, counselor, and a leader in the field of awakening according to Neal Donald Walsh, Sharon Salzberg, Jack Kornfield, Brach, and many, many more. She's also the author of a beautiful new book, What's in the Way is the Way. And today we'll be talking about transforming fear into clarity, healing beliefs that get you stuck, and moving through struggle into living fully in life. That plus we'll talk about the power of breath, butterflies and aliens, what we can all learn from picking a strawberry, the UTurn, ICU versus the ICU, and why monsters sometimes have pink fingernails. So welcome to the show, Mary. Are you ready to shine?
I just, you gave it all away, Michael. You know? That monsters really do have pink fingernails. They really do. So, yes, I am ready to shine.
And you are shining very, very bright. So a mighty woohoo!
Woo!
Okay, so before we dive right into things, I've got to ask, I was going through your beautiful blog on your website. Who does the paintings on your blog?
Martha is my PR gal, and she connects with artists all over the world. And that's one of her passions, is to find a picture, a very alive picture that goes right with the blog. And doesn't it make it makes it alive. It makes the blog alive to have these beautiful pictures.
I've never seen anybody do it before, and I'm like, this is too cool. I got to ask.
Yes, right.
It's beautiful. So going from there, if you don't mind me asking, mentioned before, I want to go back into your history just a little bit. What was your black ball of struggle?
Oh, boy, that is such a great way to describe it. You know, I had the kind of childhood that you wouldn't wish on anybody. And I just kept on moving further and further away. I just began to contract. And the best way that I've ever described it is I lived just in a complete black ball of struggle. And I was an addict and, not only drugs and alcohol, but food. And I once gained 97 pounds in a year. And I was in a couple of mental hospitals. And when all of that didn't work, all the psychologists, the psychiatrists, the group therapy, the hospitals and everything, when all of that didn't work, I tried to kill myself 3 times. And I felt that I couldn't actually kill myself, that I couldn't figure out how to take enough pills or slip my wrist in the right way.
Okay, so I hate to say this, but you were saying you were a failure at that too.
Suicide. I was a failure at life because I was even a failure at suicide. And that last time that I tried to kill myself, I asked my first honest, open-ended question. And I didn't realize that for years. And I said, if I can't get out of this, what is this all about? And a man came in my life and taught me there's nothing that needs to be fixed or changed or gotten rid of, or even risen above inside of you. And that the healing comes from, and this is his statement, in the seeing is the movement. In other words, when I learned to have my attention and my immediate experience together, this pain that I'd carried my whole life began to move through me. And so here I was in the black ball of struggle, and I would step out of it and go, oh, wow, that's a black ball of struggle. But then I would get sucked right back in again because I didn't have the strength of curiosity and the strength of heart yet to meet what I was experiencing. And then one day, I just realized I am now living outside of the black ball of struggle. I do go visit it at times, but it's very quick, and I always gather gifts from the black ball of struggle.
Ooh, and the black ball of struggle is no longer you.
Exactly. It still shows up. 2 family members have been very, very ill, in the last 16 months. So, there's a lot of heartache, a lot of fear, a lot of despair that does come up. but I don't get caught in it like I did all those years ago. I am not enmeshed with it. I am not despairing. I know it's not me. And I say, hello, hi, despair, how you doing? And it passes right through. It's a little bit more in depth than that, but
I
that's
get
the
it.
basic essence of it. Is I think that Stephen Levine, who is my main mentor, said something along the line of keep it company, keep all this stuff that is run you from underneath your everyday awareness, your despair, your loneliness, your not enoughness, your doubt, your confusion. Keep it company. And I think Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun, says, befriend it. And that's
I
what I
love that.
learned how to do.
Can you tell me, in 1968, you had an experience that you call waking up to love?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I had been very ill. And I was fasting with Dr. Everts Loomis. He had a center, Meadowlark, down in Southern California.
Hmm.
And this is the second time I've been down with him. And I had done a 10-day water fast, and now I was on juices, and I flew back up to the Seattle area. And I was living in this little cottage on the lake, a little nook of a lake. And it was September, and I went down and just sat quietly by the lake because you fasting clears so much out, not just physically,
Hmm.
but mentally and emotionally. And I was just sitting there, and it all opened up into love. I could feel, I could see, but mainly it was feeling love. That the water was expressing love, the trees were expressing love. And sometimes it was so brilliant, I had to close my eyes. But I knew that I had seen the truth. When you see the truth, you just know it. You don't doubt it, you know it. Well, I thought I had arrived, right? But I didn't know that there was 999 other parts of me that hadn't yet gotten the good news.
Hmm.
And that's the journey that I have been on all these years of how to weave all of these formerly hated, feared, disowned parts of myself back into my heart. And now I travel the world, and I write books, and I touch people's lives because I learned how to touch myself. I learned how to meet myself, not as I should be, but exactly as I am.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I think it's important. I think you would agree with me that this experience helped you to know rather than believe. But we don't necessarily need to have that
No,
experience
no.
to go down this same journey as well.
Yeah, because so many people, when I offer to them, how I view the world and how I was able to come out of, really dark, dark morass of struggle and come back to life, because that's really what it is, I can still remember Adi Ashanti, a very well-known teacher of awakening. He was a very fierce Zen student.
Hmm.
And he said one day his teacher came in, and they were all sitting, on their cushions,
Yeah.
and the teacher had a staff, and he pounded it on the ground, and he said, "This is it." And he did it a number of times, and Adi Ashanti didn't have a clue about what he was talking about. And once you have come back to life, you realize that enlightenment
Hmm.
is not about getting to nirvana, unending orgasmic bliss. Enlightenment is really lightenment. It is, as Pema Chodron calls enlightenment, relaxing into life. And when you begin to have that experience, that you see that you have a storyteller that's talking about life,
Hmm.
and then there is life, it this kind of work makes sense because we're not trying to get to life because we're already here. We're just discovering how to see, and see with great heart, all the stories. I call them spells in this new book. I love that because a spell is something that's laid over the top of you. It's not true, and they can be lifted. And we've all taken on some very deep spells, and they can be lifted through the light of your attention.
Beautiful. Before we go into the spells, I wonder if you can share briefly with us the story of the Chinese woman carrying 2 pots of water down the path.
Isn't that a wonderful story? So it's been a while since I wrote that. But here is this woman, and every day she goes down to the river, just like everybody does, and she has the pole across her shoulder, and on one end of the pole is a pot, and the other end of the pole is a pot. And she goes down, and she fills her pots and brings them back up again. But one of her pots was cracked. And she felt horrible about that. She felt like she was less than everybody else had good
Meaning
pots.
the teapot felt that she was horrible. Not the person. The teapot felt the teapot was horrible.
Yes, exactly. Or the storyteller inside of her felt like there was something bad or wrong about her because she had this one cracked pot. And then one day life pointed out to her, that cracked pot dribbles water all the way up the path that you take back home. And all along that path are now growing beautiful flowers. So I would say that I moved from a really deeply held belief that I was bad and that I was wrong. And it engendered such heartache inside of me. And as I began to finally look at my storyteller and what it was talking about, and I could see how young this storyteller is, how these beliefs were really set in motion before I was 6, I began to realize that my perfection includes my imperfection. Or, as I said, there's a wonderful Zen quote I put at the end of my first book, Belonging to Life. Freedom comes when you are without anxiety about non-perfection.
Woo!
I know. See, and the head brain that likes this and doesn't like that and thinks this is good and that is bad and this is right and that is wrong. That's not how it views the world. And it's I'm never putting it down. It's such an exquisite tool for maneuvering through reality. But it's not reality. Most people think it is. And our main brain, and science has now shown this, our main brain is the heart brain. And the heart brain is the place where all of the parts of ourselves and all of our experience of our life are woven back into the wholeness that they already are.
That's fascinating because when you think of the mind and you think of intellect, and particularly when you think of science, you think of breaking things down, which is why I know you just said it this way. So we're breaking things down with intellect or mind. We're sewing them back together with the heart.
Yes,
and the heart is saying there's nothing to be fixed.
Nothing at all. That's just a game of this mind, of this dualistic, this is good, this is bad, this is right, that is wrong. We need it for maneuvering through reality, but it's a horrible master.
And so you would say there is there is no need to fix anything.
Anything at all. And believe you me, I'll say to your listeners right now, this brain would never agree. I mean, what about the starving children in Africa? And what about the terrorists? And what about this and that? What about my cancer? What about? And what we don't realize is that this brain approaches things, it divides things. And all you have to do is look at history or even the evening news, and you'll see what that's been like. But we're on the cusp of an evolutionary shift. And this brain views the world, the heart brain views it completely differently. And all the great ones have basically said that this is where all lasting healing will happen. And this is the core of what this work is about, to how you can see and see with great compassion your addiction to struggle so it can calm down, you can see through it, and come home to your heart.
I don't know why I feel compelled to feel Care Bears.
Yeah.
They glow from the Care Bear stare. They meet with the heart.
Absolutely. And science has shown that this is the main brain. At HeartMath Institute, they did many wonderful studies, and one I'm remembering right now is that they put people in front of computers, and they hooked sensors up to their body, their heart, and their brain, and then the computer randomly, on its own, chose either horrific pictures or beautiful pictures. For everybody, the heart always responded first, then the head, and then the body. But for many of them, the heart responded 6 to 8 seconds before the computer had even chosen the pictures.
Wow.
And when I heard that, Michael, I had to rewind it 3 times. And I thought, how could that be? And what came to me is that this brain is inclusive. It is in touch with everything. That's when, people say we are one with everything. Science even shows that. About the only part of us that's not one with everything is this head that thinks it's not.
And it's under a spell.
It's under a spell. And the first spell of the 8 core spells is I am separate from life. But this brain, it's in touch with everything. So, of course, 6 to 8 seconds before the computer had even chosen it, it began to respond to the picture. That's how powerful this brain is, the heart brain.
How do we use that brain then? Let's talk about some of the key components. Fear. How do we use this brain, the heart brain, to move past fear? For instance, you and I, and probably everybody else on the planet, inherited some great fear from our parents. Even when they're loving, we would still inherit great fear from our parents.
Yeah. I love the acronym for fear, fake evidence appearing as real. And that's pretty much out there. So, and I'm not saying all fear. I say like 1% of fear is very necessary. You step off the curb and you're not noticing where you're going, and the bus honks its horn and the body just jumps back. But 99% of our fear is stories in our head. And I love the Samuel Clemens quote that, he wrote, Mark Twain. And he said, I've had so many tragedies in my life. And a few of them have actually happened. So if you had a little door on your forehead and you could open it up and you could watch the ticker tape of the 65,000 thoughts we have a day, you'll see that they're based on fear and they're glued together with judgment. Now, that some of those fears are so buried deeply. Some of the fears seem really irrational. I can't tell you how many people said, I'm so stupid, but I'm feeling this way. Well, all of these fears that we experienced when we were young and we stuffed inside of us want to be set free. And so they arise up. And when we have met enough of our mind in our heart, we can begin to use it as this tool for actually meeting the fear. And then the fear lets go.
What does that mean, to meet enough of the fear?
That the fear,
between the mind and the heart.
Yeah. So a good example out of my life. I lived in dread. This is part of the reason why I tried to kill myself so many times. And dread is, if you've never experienced it, is a very, very, very uncomfortable feeling. And it's right between my solar plexus and my belly button. And it's this horrible feeling that something really bad is going to happen. And it's going to happen because I did something wrong and I'm going to be annihilated because of it. So I think the energetic experience of dread is like being pushed in an endless elevator shaft and you're just falling and falling and falling. And I tried to eat it away, drink it away, fix it away, positive thinking it away,
Hmm.
therapizing it away. It's like Stephen says, well, you can boil it down to your parakeet died when you were 5 years old, that type of thing. And it wasn't until I began to learn how to go towards myself
Hmm.
rather than away. And this is where my compulsion, alcohol and drugs had faded away on their own. But my food compulsion, and anybody that gains 97 pounds in a year is a pretty serious eater, it I moved it out of something wrong with me that I have to control,
Hmm.
because I tried to control it and it didn't work. It only made it worse, into it became my teacher. So I keep a chocolate bar in my house at all times, a very fine European bittersweet chocolate bar.
Mm.
And I eat just very naturally. My body has stayed the same weight. I had let go of all of that weight because I was no longer needed padding and protection. And whenever I'm interested in going to that chocolate bar,
Hmm.
more than just a little square to enjoy, I'm interested because it's my biofeedback mechanism. Okay.
Yep.
So here I was, and I woke up. This was probably 23 years ago. And I have been doing this work for a while, because you don't start with a state of dread right away. You start, with little baby steps. That's why I have 10 remembering sessions in the new book. At the end of each chapter, we start very slowly strengthening the muscle of your curiosity and making it safe enough that the heart can open. So I've been doing this for a while, and I wake up in the middle of the night out of a dead sleep, and I am in dread.
Yep.
And it's just, my heart is pounding, and I can't even see why it's there. Was it a dream? Was it, I'm just, and so I call it becoming a tightness detective. I notice that I'm tight, very powerful just to notice you're tight. And my mind says, I want to go eat something. And I said, well, yeah, we can go do that, but that doesn't help the dread.
I call that misplaced energy. When I sense that
Yeah.
compulsion in me,
Yes.
where is that energy coming? Because I got to go pull on that thread. It doesn't mean I can't do, but I probably don't want to do whatever it is, but
Yeah.
follow the thread or the
Because it will
breadcrumbs.
show you something. It will absolutely show you something. That's why I say, when I wrote the gift of our compulsions, when I self-published it, my
Hmm.
title, which I absolutely love, is Healing and Being Healed by Our Compulsions.
I love it.
And then New World picked it up and they changed it to the gift of our compulsions.
Hmm.
But to change our relationships. I mean, one of the greatest gifts I was given, Michael, was to be highly compulsive, because I couldn't control it. Man, I'm a Taurus. I went a month without food once. I'm going to control this eater. And all I did when I stopped that 1 month of no food is I just ate and ate and ate and ate. But then I started to become curious. So here I am laying in my bed, and there's just this really uncomfortable feeling. And there's a whole thing about discomfort in the book, about how we can be fascinated by discomfort rather than trying to get away from it, because that's where the treasures are.
And paying attention to the body, because you are focusing in on it, and it's going to tell you something.
Exactly, because these spells, they show up as stories in our head.
Hmm.
They show up as feelings, but they also show up as sensations in our body. And that is probably for most people the easiest way to begin to be curious, because the youngest parts, they'll show up as that lump in your throat,
Hmm.
or that elephant sitting on your chest, or your jaw that you feel is going to break, or that furrow in your brow, or that fist in your solar plexus, or that hole in your belly, or that ache in your back. And that's the easiest place for people to discover how to relate to what they are experiencing rather than from it. Remember, I said earlier, we follow this storyteller all day long. And if it says we're mad, we think we're mad. If it says we're sad, we think we're sad. We're breaking that identification. So here I was, and dread, and the dread was in my head, it was in my emotions, it was in my body. And I said to the eater, yeah, you can go. Yeah, but that leaves this all alone, and it's going to come again some other time.
Hmm.
So I turned my attention towards my body, much like you could walk into a smelly room, like, oh, okay, I guess I'll bring attention here. And when I brought my attention here,
Hmm.
I could first of all notice that there was just extreme tightness all over my body. So I allowed a couple of long, slow, deep out breaths. And the out breath is where the key is to turning on the calming aspect of our nervous system. It's helpful to have that turned on a bit before you go exploring, because if you don't, the fight or flight was, oh, I don't like this. I still want to go eat. I want to get ready for this. And so I just took a couple of long, deep breaths. And remember, I've been doing this for a while. So it
Hmm.
takes a while to build up to this place where you can actually be present for something that you have run away from your whole life. And so I bring my attention in, and sure enough, there it is. And it's right between my solar plexus and my belly button. And it was a little hard at the beginning because there's a part of my mind that was afraid, oh, if I go there, then I will be engulfed by it. But when you learn how to pay attention, you're not engulfed by it. You're actually there with it. And as I explored it, and when people start doing this, and I talk about it in the remembering sessions, oh, I talk about it throughout the whole book, that you begin to invite your attention there,
Hmm.
not by trying to find anything, fix anything, make anything go away. You just bring your attention there, and how big is this? Is it the size of a softball or the size of a basketball? Does it have a definite boundary, or is it more kind of wavy? Does it move around? And this engages your curiosity. How deep is it? Is it right on the surface, or is it really more deep inside? Is it throbbing? Is it pulsing? Is it stabbing? Is it aching? And I invite people, when they're beginning to do this, to only stay there as long as their interest holds. I find that people, they just, they don't, I got to do this. I got to do this. No, 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 no. There's no pushing here. But my job, and I do it all throughout the book, and I also have a radio show now that I do it in, is to wake up your curiosity. And there was a moment
Hmm.
where there was no more resistance. There was just curiosity. I was fully with that bound up energy, and I heard it. I heard how terrified it was, and it transformed into joy.
Did it tell you where it came from or what it was about?
Not in that instance, but oftentimes in previous, past times, yes, because it's what we have to realize is that we look out in nature, and it's free flowing aliveness.
Hmm.
Everything flows. Sound flows, light flows, water flows, day flows into night, winter into spring. We are a part of that flow. But we have separated ourselves out by thinking, and we have held on to a lot of stuff that we didn't know what to do with when we were young. It's like, your older brother takes your toy and taunts you with it, and you're trying to get the toy, and he's holding it up just high enough so that you can't get it. And so you bite him. So you run into the kitchen, Mommy, Mommy, she bit me. And mom runs out and spanks you and sends you to your room. Can you imagine what that would feel like? The heartache, the confusion, he took my toy. All we learn how to do, and if you watch children, they learn very early on to hold their breath. We tightened it, we stuffed it deep inside of ourselves. Now, this really deep stuff is a little bit like a baby deer. And what we do with this baby deer of our frozen parts is we take a gun out into the woods and try to shoot the damn thing.
What?
Yeah, go. I don't want to feel this way. It's just we learn it from our parents. Oh, you're making a big deal out of nothing. Leave me alone. I'll send you to your room.
Yesterday we were coming back from the trails, Jessica and I, and we'd had a beautiful experience with, maybe we'll share later about with a reptile on the trails, and we found it ran in front of us, a deer trying to get back into the forest, trapped by a fence where it kept banging into the fence because it couldn't get over. And it was a baby deer, and it was very sad to watch. And we were going past fast, so we couldn't get back to the deer right away. But it was fascinating to watch the baby deer struggle, and then hear you talking about the baby deer today.
Baby deer today. Doesn't it give you chills? Because this is such an intelligent process, Michael. And if one of my core things is to invite people to show up for it. Life is highly intelligent, and it's giving us, all of us, what we need. What's that great Eckhart Tolle quote? Life will give you the exact set of experiences you need in order to become a conscious human being. How do we know they're the right set of experiences? You're having them.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, it's something you talk about real briefly. Let's jump back into it. You said, well, if you don't think that there's an intelligence about, just think of how many cells you have in the body that came out of one cell.
And they all work together without a thought from you. 70 trillion cells. And I'm looking out this exquisite window. I live in a little 102-year-old cottage that looks out on this secret magical garden. And science now shows that every single leaf, every single piece of grass, even the air, is all made out of atoms that were once a part of a star. What is it that took stardust and created this magical planet? If you doubt that, go look at Mars. Beautiful in its own right, but red and rock. And look at the moon, brown and dust. Oh my God, we've got zebras and aardvarks and orchids and ladybugs and spinner dolphins and iceberg. And oh my God. So much of this work is learning how to set free this conditioned self that keeps us caught and separate from life. So dread was a core component of my childhood. And so here it arises in the middle of the night. Now, I relate to these very deep feelings, the feeling of the fear of being alone, of the not enoughness, the terror of being taken over by life, just these dread, there's so many energetic events that got bound up inside of us. And so when you understand they're like baby deer, they are our joy bound up. And you go through trying to kill the baby deer, we just try to stay as busy as we can, or eat the thing, or drink the thing, or smoke the thing. Then we do therapy, and we try to understand the thing. So we go run in the woods and say, baby deer, I want to talk to you. Of course, the baby deer runs away. Then you do this kind of work. And you sit in the center of the clearing. And the baby deer will immediately come to the clearing, but it won't come in because it is terrified, because you have sent so much judgment and so much fear into your own deep vulnerabilities. And one day, the baby deer will come into the clearing and you'll say hello and it will run away. Now, more and more, as we learn how to be curious and very spaciousness around what we're experiencing, especially around the challenges of our lives, that's where we can begin to set this bound up energy free. So I had heard a lot from the dread and really understood. And all it needed in that moment is my full attention, and it let go. And I just expanded into joy. But there's something that needs to be said here. You can't bring your attention, which is the most powerful healing tool you have. You can't bring your attention into your immediate experience and expect it to open if there's any part of you that is doing that to try to make it go away. It doesn't work.
How do we flip that on its head to understand that it's all okay just as it is?
Yeah, I think we need to hear this over and over again. I have a radio show now, and people can go on my website, and there's a radio show thing you click on the left-hand side. But I did 8 foundational shows. And the last show, the title of it is Trusting Life, All of It. And I really mapped out how the heart, and don't think of this heart as a mushy heart. This is a highly intelligent brain. How to see through the eyes of the heart. The heart knows what Eckhart was saying. You're given the right set of experiences, that your life is for you. But we have to hear it over and over again because we have lived in this brain for so long that it looks at terrorism on this planet now and goes, oh, and creates all sorts of horrible stories, or it looks at what's happening in with politicians, and they say, oh my God, we're falling apart, and this is the Armageddon and all that. To me, it is an evolutionary shift, a shift out of this fear-based mind and back into the inclusive heart. So if people want to know more about that, they can email Martha and she can send them a link to that. I think it's the most important thing I've ever put out into the world, trusting life, all of it.
Beautiful. From there, let's talk about some of the spells and some of the real common ones. Maybe the most common, perhaps, spell, which is the I am wrong spell.
Yes. I have worked with people for over 30 years, and I've seen people, all walks of life, from homeless people to CEOs to developmentally disabled people to mothers that are overwhelmed, with all of their children. And I just feel so honored that I've been able to see into the minds and hearts of so many people, because I create a very safe place, whether it's individually or in groups or retreats, that we can be real. Stephen Levine said, I'm going to create a hat. And when you put it on your head, it instantaneously broadcasts over a loudspeaker all of your thoughts.
Holy tamale.
I know. The room I was in had 200 people. This was in the early 80s. And there was just a collective groan. But he said, no, you would know so much freedom because you would know that we're all doing the same thing. So I've been able to hear that hat, from, tens of thousands of people. And out of that has come the 8 core spells that we all have. The first are the 2 core spells. I'm separate from life. We're not this storyteller in our head that separates us. And the second is life is not safe. The head does not see the intelligence of this process. That leads us to the 3 operating spells where most people live. I got to do life, and I've got to do it right.
So if I pause you there, you were mentioning earlier, it hit it about 10 minutes ago. I was just about in tears when you were mentioning, I think, about your own story, because I was thinking back to my early days, and forgive me for saying or sharing this, I used to hit myself in the belly. You don't deserve to live, you blankety blank. And I really felt that I hadn't done or met or lived up to whatever it is to deserve to even exist.
Exactly. Michael, so beautifully said. And it's so many people and have taken this on. And the 3rd operating spell is, I'm not doing it right enough. And so that's where most people live. I got to do it. I got to do life right. And I'm not doing it right enough. I got to do it. I got to do life, and I'm not doing it right enough, which leads us to the 3 hidden spells. And this is everybody I've ever talked to has these, but we're trying to outrun them like we outrun the bear in the woods. And what happens when you try to outrun the bear in the woods? It runs after you. So the three hidden spells are, because I'm not doing it right enough, I am wrong, or unworthy, or bad, or however your mind says it. I am wrong. Thus, I am unlovable. And thus, this is the greatest fear of all human beings, I am all alone. And it is painful. It's at the beginning. It's like taking a scab off of a wound. But when you begin to realize that everybody else is run by these, and you begin to realize the amazing thing that it all leads to this really core spell, the fear of being all alone, and you take that word, you separate it out, it's all one, AL-1, that as we learn how to stand with these spells inside of us, as they show up as sensations in our body or feelings or stories in our head. I call it look to unhook. And more something will arise, like dread can arise now. And I go say, hi, dread. And it just passes right through me. You know, as you well know, I have two very close family members that are very ill. And that really brings up, I think, the roots of these spells. And so it's been a very challenging year and a half, but it's also been a very enriching, because over and over again, I meet these spells as they're woken up through these illnesses. And as I am with the spell and it moves through me, then I can be with that person fully.
How quickly are you with the spell, and how much do you still have, whether we call it a fight or flight or amygdala response, how much of the wiring is still there?
Yes. I feel like I'm working on the tips of the root. You know, you have dandelions and you go out and you yank out the greens, and then the thing grows back again, and then you dig it out, but you leave that much of the root, it grows back again. So to me, this is a little bit what the journey is like. You know, we digest some of it, and then it comes around again to be seen a little bit more and a little bit more. And I would say the two things that have helped me a lot are, number one, my chocolate bar, because when I want to eat more than one piece of that chocolate bar, I know there's something inside that needs me. Now, sometimes my life is too busy. I don't have a chance to sit with myself. So I just acknowledge the eater. I say, thank you for, being here. When you're ready, I want to know what you're taking care of. And then I move on with my life. But the other thing that helps me a lot is to be a tightness detective, because it, energy danced through us when we were young. And for most people, it's almost like coagulated, the energy of life. The more you come back to life, the more radiant you become, the more alive you become. People like to be around you because they kind of get that hit of that energy is open inside of this human being. So it isn't that I don't get caught, but it's very quickly that I at least acknowledge that I'm caught, and I turn it over to life. I love living in questions without looking for an answer. I think that really helps access the intelligence at the heart of life. And as soon as I can, a team of wild horses wouldn't keep me away from sitting quietly, closing my eyes, finding what has been bound up, and giving it the attention it needs to be free. In fact, I could say one of the people had, they took him within an inch of his life in order to have him live. And now he's having surgeries. And the last surgery was a very, very major surgery. And he was in the hospital for 5.5 days. And I was there a lot. And I was so grateful because he doesn't watch television, and he liked the curtains of the windows closed. And so it was very quiet in there. And I would sit and just have my hand touching him somewhere and just be open to this process, have my heart be open to him. And then he would moan in his sleep, or the doctor would come in and say something. And they would go out, and then I would close my eyes again, and there was something holding again. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was despair, and I would then give it my attention, and then it would move right through me. Who we are is that which can see what binds us up. We are not the binding up itself.
Beautiful. You have a term you call in here called the UTurn.
Right. That came. I used to have a half-day retreat the first Saturday of every month, and we were talking about it, and that if we don't understand what Eckhart is talking about when he said you're being given the exact set of experiences you need in order to become conscious, how do we know? Because you're having them.
Which does require trust.
Yes. Well, it's kind of like a babe learning how to walk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you start kind of feeling your way into trust. You don't have to have complete trust. The legs are a little wobbly, but slowly and surely you can run and skip. And then, my God, at one time you can do a marathon. Okay. And so it really, that ability to be curious about what you're experiencing when a big challenge comes into your life, mm-hmm. especially people. People are so good for this because they drive you absolutely bananas. The boss, says something about you in a meeting, or the mate says, I'm going to divorce you if you don't start squeezing the toothpaste tube from the bottom, mm-hmm. rather than from the middle. And so we have all these challenges, and we're constantly trying to make them better out there. But the U-turn is the Y-O-U turn. And I was talking about the U-turn, and somebody said, oh, it's the Y-O-U turn. I said, yes, that's what it is, a Y-O-U turn. And I love the question when anything challenging is happening, and you may not be able to ask this until like after the argument is over or you're on your way driving home from work. What does this bring up inside of me? And the more you can see that life is putting you in situations to bring up the bound up energy, mm-hmm. and the more you get curious about it, the more open you are. And then the more you can share with the boss or the mate or the child, when that happened, this is what it brought up inside of me. You're not making them responsible for your experiencing, but you are speaking the truth of your experience. And that's what we want, is we want to be heard.
Let's say, thank you for sharing on that. Let's say that somebody is facing, for example, financial difficulties.
Yes.
And we can go into this healing process, but we still have those challenges.
Right. And the challenges are a part of the process. Believe you me, if it's not financial, it's going to be physical. If it's not physical, it's going to be relational. If it's not relational, it's going to be with compulsions. I wrote this all in one fell swoop when I was writing What's in the Way. Life is set up to bring up what has been bound up so it can open up to be freed up so we can show up for life. So what would it be like even to have a moment where you recognize that this financial difficulty, and of course your storyteller is saying, my God, I'm going to be a homeless bag lady. The storyteller can just go wild and crazy. But if we use this, and this doesn't have to happen all the time. It's a moment here and a moment there. We say, okay, life, what are you showing me here? Or what is asking to be seen? We take our attention out of the stories about it, not only what did I do wrong to get myself here, but the future, oh my God, what's going to happen? And instead, we bring our attention into our immediate experience, and we ask, okay, what are you showing me here, life? Or what am I ready to see here in life? And we begin to go exploring. And I really lay this out in the book. Well, I also lay it out in the gift of our compulsions, because that's using just compulsions in order to become an explorer. What's in the way uses all the challenges of our life. And all I can tell you is that my experience is when you can actually meet, let's say it's the fear of being abandoned, that this financial disaster is bringing up inside of you. There's something that happens when you actually begin to meet this. Things open up, and things that you could not even imagine would happen in your life begin to happen in your life.
As
And
above, so below. Heal the heart.
yes.
And the doors open.
And the doors open. And Pema Chodron, again, the Buddhist nun, such a wise woman. And she said, when something has taught you everything it's here to teach you, it will leave.
I love it.
Isn't it wonderful? So we don't trust the process at the beginning. But I just, I really developed this thread through a lot of what I offer to the world. And slowly and surely, we begin to see that just like it orchestrates 70 trillion cells without a thought from us, it also is orchestrating our daily life. And it doesn't mean that we're just, sitting down by the side of the road. Oh, life's in charge. I have nothing to do. No. This is a foundational relationship with life. Life is for you. And when you live from that foundational relationship, if you have a challenge, like the financial challenge, if you meet what is bringing up inside of you, then you will have things come through you, insights, ways to say something or to do something that you probably would not have thought of when you were all tight. So this is setting our tight energy free so we can enter the great flow of life and really, truly trust our challenges.
Woohoo!
Yeah!
So from there, let's talk briefly about parents and kids.
Oh, boy. Do you have kids?
We don't. We're yeah, not
You're
yet.
working on it. Yes, right. I briefly, I would say that there is no accident that you're the mother that your children need, and there's no accident that your child is the perfect child for you. That I told my kids, it looks like I'm raising you, but this is a two-way street. We're really raising one another. And the more we learn how to listen to ourselves, the less we react and the more we respond. And to be able to respond to our child when they are going through something similar to what we experienced in third grade or fifth grade or preschool or whatever, the chances of your wisdom self responding are far greater when you have met it inside of you. And I think the last thing I'll share is I love what Maya Angelou says, that if you want to raise really healthy and grounded children, have your eyes light up at least once a day when they come in the room. Because our children watch our eyes. They really do. And to have eyes that say, I see you and I accept you as they are, it helps them to relax. And couldn't we say, Michael, that that's what we've been talking about in this interview, that we're learning how to do that with ourselves, with every single part. Even have your listeners just imagine something you would want nobody else in the world to know, let alone yourself. And just imagine that was no longer put out of your heart. You then become a healing presence in the world.
Woohoo!
Yeah!
So a few questions I like to ask toward the end, and then we'll jump into a meditation of your choice, is what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo woohoo factor?
Nature helps me a lot, and nature, I live in this magical garden, and it just, I love that poem from Hafiz, the Persian poet that came 100 years after Rumi. He said, the sun doesn't say, after all these years, to the earth, you owe me. Look what a love like that can do. It lights up the whole sky. And to be able to let that in, to really let in the light that is nature, the love that is nature, fills us up. And then one of my favorite things to do, I hang out with lots of people, and to really be present for them is the greatest joy. But I love to go to the grocery store. And oftentimes I'm the only person in the grocery store that's really there. But I just open my heart to, and every once in a while you'll meet somebody that's there too, and we'll just look and we'll nod and then pass on.
Well, your eyes are open. If you're like us, you're skipping around on occasion, not always, but skipping around like you're in a giant toy store.
Yes, right.
I get this one. I get it. Yeah. So, do you like to hike?
Oh, I love to, and I can't anymore. I had spine surgery. So I've got about 20 minutes of walking, and I have a woods by my house, and I go every other day. I can't go every day, but I go into the woods, and I'm home.
Beautiful.
I'm home.
Beautiful. And then you garden, so you do get your hands in the earth and get that grounding time.
Yeah, by far, right.
So where can people go to find out more and to find your book and to find all of your work?
MaryO'Malley.com. That's MaryO'Malley. And they can find about telegroups and Skype appointments. And I've got CDs and books and all of that. And if they want to see all the amazing endorsements for What's in the Way, they can go to what'sintheway.com.
Perfect. Beautiful. And if you didn't catch that, if you're driving down the road, go to inspirenationshow.com and we'll get you right over to Mary's website as well. Any last words of wisdom before we jump into a meditation?
Just that you are listening to this interview because life is asking you to become a part of the healing of our planet. That to me, what I offer is how to heal the wars inside of you so that you can be present for life, be a healing presence. And that is what's going to heal our poor, beleaguered world, one person at a time.
It's hard to imagine the world enveloped in darkness if we're all shining bright.
Exactly. Exactly.
Woohoo!
And it's happening. It's happening. It's not a huge percentage of people, but it is gaining steady momentum that more and more of us are coming back to life. And once you really are here for life, there is absolutely no way that you could do any action that was harmful to yourself, to others, or to the planet.
I look at our audience, and it's such we were talking before the show, such a bridge of a show. It's kind of a funny term, but it's we're all working on shining bright, and our audience is growing along with us. And I'd argue just a few years ago, we're 174 countries, we're thousands of people around the globe. I'd argue we wouldn't have even existed a few years ago. That our audience now is ready for this, and we're all growing along this together.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like somebody has turned on the switch.
Yeah, exactly. And in a strange way, just like in my life, the gift I was given was great darkness. And then I learned how to, just like with manure, you plant it in the ground and it grows beautiful flowers. I learned how to digest and set it free. And as more and more people now are discovering how to do that inside of themselves, that is where we become the healing presence. And it's not going to take a whole heck of a lot of people. There's a certain a mass amount that will shift. And in some ways, it's very, very good that there's so much fear on this planet. The economy, the climate, the terrorists, the viruses. Oh my God. And it's bringing fear up close enough to the surface now that we can't just manage it. And so it is an opportunity to really go explore fear and move right on through it.
I love it. And one of the things I see with all the challenges, particularly with the planet now, such as the fires in Canada, and all of these challenges, not only is it an opportunity to heal ourselves, but time and time again, you see people coming together.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the next evolutionary shift to me. It's been coming together, stuff to atoms, atoms to molecules, molecules to cells, cells to multi-cell beings. And now the evolutionary shift is in the coming together of understanding that we're one being and that we're all in this together.
Woohoo! All right. Did you have a brief meditation?
Just
Thank
a brief
so
one. Yes. I think that this is it's probably more of a visualization, but I invite people to come sit on the moon with me because I have all these wonderful Barco loungers up there. They're those really big, soft, comfy chairs. And we just get settled in. And then we look across space, and there is this blue, green, white, tan jewel that is our home. And just be stunned by her beauty. Oh my God. And if you doubt that, look over at Mars and Red and Rock or down at the moon and then back and just see all the different colors and all the different variations of eyes and all the majestic icebergs and the fields of wheat that are dancing in the wind. Be stunned by her beauty. And then see that most human beings, driving, working, hiking, doing yoga, swimming, dancing, all have clouds around their head. They are not here for life. And now zoom in on the planet right where you are and see you exactly in what you're doing, listening to this program, and see that it is true that the clouds around your head are beginning to thin, and then see yourself go out in your life and begin to invite other people to be here for life just through your presence, just through your aware heart, and see that person turning to other people and see them igniting other people and see that then spread like wildfire all over our planet and see humanity wake up to the truth that we are love and life is bringing us home. Namaste.
Namaste. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for being on the show. Thank you. I'm going to crank it back up for the finish now. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, remember what's in the way is the way, and shine bright. Woohoo!
Woo! Oh, my friend. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, this was... We did good. Yes, we did. Right.
Woohoo!
Thank you for your service to me.
Thank you. Absolutely goes both ways.
Right.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!